For the last few weeks, we have been celebrating in London the 50th anniversary of the installation of Sri Sri Radha Ishvara. It's been going on for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. The celebration spread over different events in different parts of London. I've been attending a few of those events where Srila Prabhupada lectured in 1969 in Conway Hall. We had a big event there, and we had one recently in the Hammersmith Apollo, which is a big famous theatre where the Beatles and so many other people performed. That was the main event. And all the old devotees who were associated with the opening of the London Temple were invited. Many of them came. Shamasundar, Malati, Guru Das, and of course all the older Prabhupada disciples from the English Yatra. And there were some, it was wonderful to meet all the old devotees, Rohini Nandana and Manchor, and all those old devotees who were there when we all joined and that we're all very familiar with, who are now scattered in different directions around England and indeed the world. But what struck me was the official presentation of the 50th anniversary and all the different events that we covered were somewhat different from the reality of what ISKCON is today. And like, for instance, the Apollo program was like a Hare Krishna version of Cirque du Soleil. You know Cirque du Soleil. Really very little associated with Krishna consciousness. All the performers were non-devotees, imported from Holland, Belgium, Czech Republic at great expense, professional performers. They did a great job. The show was first class from a perspective of pure entertainment. But in relationship to this being the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the installation of the deities and the opening of the London Temple and the different precepts that Srila Prabhupada had enunciated when he established ISKCON as to why the society functions as it is, it was a far cry from what the 50th anniversary events were actually portraying. Just completely different. And it wasn't only me, many of the devotees who were in attendance, the older devotees, were of a like mind. And it struck me in relationship to Dhaneshwar Prabhu's book that when you see the history of ISKCON, as Atma was saying earlier on, and Keshi, that everything kind of falls into place when you read about the histories that we've all lived through. Every single one of us, we've gone through those different histories, but in isolation, they seem like isolated incidents or isolated, perhaps negative cases that we can all relate to. But then when they're all brought together in one place, there's a train of events that is revealed in Dhaneshwar's book of how this train of events is not a coincidence. There's a sequence of planned programs which is culminating, we could say, in the objective of having the ultimate demise of ISKCON. And ISKCON, when we speak of ISKCON, when I speak of ISKCON as Srila Prabhupada was wanting it to be, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, not the International Institution for Krishna Consciousness, which is a separate. The institution and the society, when we see the 7 precepts that Srila Prabhupada outlined, they're in every single issue of Back to Godhead, and they're all there for everyone. And what we have today, as Dhaneshwar Prabhu will explain, we have to judge by this. We may have a big institution engaging in so many activities, like the big Rathmattas in the Apollo in Hammersmith, where there was 4,000 people there. From one point of view, you can say that's a successful program. Conway Hall, where Srila Prabhupada himself lectured many, many times. It was packed. All these functions, they're all packed out with thousands of people. And seemingly everybody's jai. But the main emphasis was not on developing Krishna consciousness, but on enhancing the society and the name and the role of the society, of the institution, rather than just the society, which was the message that I got out of all of these events, and pretty much most of the Prabhupada disciples who attended. So Daneshwar Prabhu will explain why he has written this book, how it came together, the history behind it, and hopefully we'll be able to generate a discussion from there, and we'll all go away very nice and happy and dancing in ecstasy. Thank you very much.
Okay. Now you have to introduce Daneshwar.
Now Daneshwar, this is the book we're speaking of, that is titled Divine or Demoniac.
Subtitle?
And the subtitle, Spiritual Movements and the Enemies Within. So as you can see from the cover, very nicely commissioned painting, painted by one devotee from the Eastern European countries. And Srila Prabhupada depicted in Tompkins Square Park, where Prabhupada started preaching under a tree. And we can see that some of the people in the background, they're wearing the mask of a devotee. And when the mask is removed, they reveal another kind of personality. So Daneshwar Prabhu, who has been associated with Krishna consciousness since the early 70s, I believe you joined in 1972, and as a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, it has taken him, with the greatest reluctance, nearly 20 years to write this book. He fought and fought and fought within himself to not write it. But then as things unfolded and as the institution developed, then he was obliged, he felt, to write this book and put all the pieces together so as an alternative society can be presented to save the suffering humanity. So I'll hand over now to Daneshwar, and he can take it from here.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Viduraji. Appreciate that. I want to thank Madhu and Kamala for hosting our program today. And I also want to, this first opportunity I have to publicly thank Vidura. He was actually almost my co-writer. Rather, he put in a lot of work. He worked with me. We sent material back and forth for 2 entire years. So he was very helpful for that, and I want to thank him for his effort and also for his friendship. In the process, we've become close friends over the last 8 years. So, now most of you, it appears, we joined, came to Krishna consciousness in the 80s, is it? Yeah? Anybody know?
77.
70?
70, yeah.
What?
Noughties, early noughties.
Okay.
70.
Okay. So you've all had a lot of experience, and even you who come recently, you've also had some interesting experience with this stuff, seeing multiple sides of the society or institution. I want to say a few things before I forget them. There's a website, www.divineordemoniac.com. Please check there. Also on Facebook, my personal Facebook page, which anything I post about the book, I also post on the Divine or Demoniac page, so you can check there for that. Please follow. Somehow or other that helps. I don't know how that works, but they say that. So. And YouTube. So the introductory lecture that I gave when I launched the book in May is I repeated it. It's on my YouTube channel, Daneshwara or Don Ishwara. If you search for my name, it'll come up, or search for Divine or Demoniac, it'll come up. That video, I'm surprised, has got over 1,500 views by now. And so it's stirring up some interest. In that video, I explain why Srila Prabhupada was such a threat to the powers that be. And I'll just go over that briefly. You all know now about deep state, right? We all hear about deep state and all that stuff. So are the powers that be, same kind of word. The people who control the world. Prabhupada explained several times in his books, the world is controlled by Rakshashas, and that's no exaggeration at all. So, how do they control the world? Generally, they control, or let's say ostensibly, we think everything is done by laws, but that's a facade, that's for us. But how they actually control things is what you would call anyway, above the laws, subliminal almost. So, of course, one way they have of controlling people is with guns. But that's, if you have to use guns, you're not doing a good job. Better than that is alcohol and drugs. Better than that is history. Better than that is economics. Better than that is religion. And better than that is worldview. So these 6 things is how they basically control the world. This is explained by one Viktor Yefimov. He's the rector of St. Petersburg State Agricultural College. And I met him. I spoke at his university one time. And so the video is on YouTube, entitled How to Rule the World. And in that video, he explains these 6 methods by which the powers that be actually control people. And it's a fact. And interestingly, he said the most powerful one is worldview.
Media.
Huh?
Media.
Media is one also. Did I say media?
Is that not worldview?
Oh.
Social engineering.
Yeah. Well, worldview, worldview, of course, is the answer to the existential questions. Who are we, where we come from, etc. So if you can give people a particular worldview, then, what have we been given? The atheistic, scientific, evolutionary worldview. And so this way, they're trying to control things. Anyway, he was explaining, in this video, he's talking to the KGB at that time. And he's explaining to them, this is the methods of control. Now, it's important to note that Srila Prabhupada, he threatened 5 out of the 6 methods of control. So Prabhupada actually was a very great threat to the powers that be. And so what do? How do they control the world? How do they rule the world? Well, they infiltrate things. They infiltrate everything. And so in the book, I make the case that our society has been infiltrated, like everybody else. When I was in Russia, I learned from some of the devotees there. The Soviets, they had a division, or the KGB had a division called the 5th Chief Directorate, which was their purpose was to, quote, maintain the ideological purity of the Soviet Union. And what they did is they infiltrated everything. And they infiltrated ISKCON. I learned from one devotee, Vrindavan Das, one of the earliest devotees in Soviet Union. I met him on my first trip to Russia. And he was explaining that when he was in prison, that he was informed that the KGB had infiltrated ISKCON all the way up to the level of the GBC from New York. Not from Russia, from New York. And that's collaborated by Tapapunj. I don't know if you know his name. He was in New Vrindavan. He went to prison for some time due to his activities in New Vrindavan. And he was also told by the FBI that we were infiltrated. And I give several other examples in the book of how this infiltration occurred. Anyway, if we understand how the world really works, this shouldn't be any surprise to us. This is how they control the world. They infiltrate everything. And so Prabhupada was a big threat. And he threatened their worldview. He threatened, no intoxication. He threatened their economic control, live simply on the land, don't work. He threatened the history. He gave us an entirely different understanding of the history. And whatever the other one was. Anyway, he threatened their whole program. And so it's important for them to put a kibosh on the Hare Krishna movement. Now, you all were there in the heyday. If not in the 70s, the 80s, let's say, things were still going pretty strong. And so you remember what that was like. And Prabhupada said that maybe it was 75 or 76, if we continue like this for another 20 years, we'll be the only religion in the world. So it had to be stopped. So how do they do it? Well, they infiltrate. And Prabhupada said, in fact, he said this movement cannot be stopped from the outside. So indicating that only from the inside. So has the Hare Krishna movement been stopped? Vidura alluded to that. And probably all of us, from our own experience, will say, well, the ISKCON today is not the ISKCON that we joined. It's something very different. And has it been stopped? Well, ostensibly there's some success in India and Russia. They're going very strong. Many thousands of devotees in both of those countries. Ukraine also, the Baltics. And I've traveled in all those places and I've seen that success. But we have to question what kind of success it is. Because you may remember, or not, I don't know. I wasn't here in Ireland in those days, but I joined Prabhupada's mission as a revolutionary. I joined during the Vietnam era, and so many kids were protesting on the street, and I did that a few times, felt pretty impotent at doing that. So I was looking around for some other way to challenge the status quo, and then I came across Prabhupada's books. And Prabhupada said, if you want to change the world, you have to change consciousness. And I went, yeah, that's the idea. So with that idea, I joined ISKCON to change the world. And I still have the revolutionary bent. And I'm disappointed that the revolution stopped. ISKCON has become, let's say, co-opted or marginalized, or we've gone mainstream. And the newcomers are taught, go to school, get your degree, get a job, come to the temple on the weekends and support the temple. This is what Prabhupada told us not to do. Don't go to school, he said. Right? Don't go to school. Why waste your time? Live simply on the land. Right? Prabhupada is telling us how to live differently. But that's all gone. Nobody's taught like that anymore. So, in that sense, we understand that their efforts to quell the revolutionary spirit of the Hare Krishna movement have been successful. Now, does that mean that also the spiritual component of the movement has been quelled or not? Because after all, they still teach everybody to chant Hare Krishna. They worship the deities, they have Srimad Bhagavatam class and so on. Well, this gets into a gray area, and we can't say definitively yes or no with this, because it's fact that any individual within the society can develop love of God if they apply the process properly. So we can't say, just across the board, no, that's not possible. But we don't know just yet where everything is going, because they're changing the direction. At the lower levels of the society, you go into the temple, you see the deity worship, they go to the Harinam, hear the Srimad Bhagavatam class. At the lower levels of the organization, no problem. Where's the problem? At the top. Because the top, they have control, they can, they control the course of the ship, and the whole ship's off course now, right? How do you get initiated now? Well, you got to take, in Moscow, you've got to take 4 different exams in order to get qualified. You have to be recommended by some temple authority, even if they don't know you. Your guru has to be approved by the GBC, and you have to take the ISKCON Disciples course. It's not, when I got initiated, maybe you also, I had to take a test. Okay, that's good. What do you know about Krishna consciousness? Nothing wrong with that. But in the ISKCON Disciples course, they reiterate over and over again that you are becoming a disciple of, not your guru, of ISKCON. Right? You're an institutional person. You're joining the institution. And the institution is emphasized again and again and again. For example, they say, actually they changed the Chaitanya Charitamrita, sorry. It was edited. There was one purport Prabhupada said, if you have problems with the society, you can take shelter of the spiritual master. And that was edited to, if you have problems with the society, you should still, stay in the society. Something like this. In other words, don't rock the boat. They also say that if you criticize ISKCON, because ISKCON is Prabhupada's body, you criticize ISKCON, you're criticizing Srila Prabhupada. So they put this fear in the young devotees' minds that you're not supposed, it's like this, don't see anything, don't hear anything, don't speak anything. So they have to check their brains at the door. This is not what Prabhupada wanted. Prabhupada wanted independently thoughtful men, dvijas. We call this dvija. Dvija means what? The higher orders. The Vaishyas, Kshatriyas, and Brahmanas. Sudras, this class of people, they do not have enough discriminating intelligence. They would need security, and they just follow. Okay, but the dvijas, this class has to be independent men. Okay, by nature, they're independent, right? You go to any business, does the boss of the business have a boss? No, he won't have a boss. He doesn't want a boss, he's the boss, right? By his nature. The same thing with the Kshatriya or the Brahmana. Their nature is to be independent, but independence has become a bad word in ISKCON today. You can't be independent. Everybody's asking, who's your authority? So I would travel around sometimes and the devotees would ask me, who's your authority? And I would say, Srila Prabhupada. What's the problem with that? What, I should have my godbrother be? No, you have to have, the GBC authority or something like that. Anyway, I was basically a free agent. I traveled for from 2005 to 2015, 16. So about 10 years. And I spent 5 years first in Ukraine. I was preaching about spiritual economics. I went there to the Russian-speaking countries because the prophecy by several people is that Russia will become the hope of the future of mankind, whereby man learns to live for the benefit of his fellow man. And when I heard that, I went, oh, this is spiritual economics, so I want to go there and preach. So I went there, I spent 5 years in Ukraine, wrote my book, Spiritual Economics. And then I traveled all around, or while there, I traveled all around Ukraine, Russia, Eastern Europe, and then later Western Europe, India, Russia. So as I was traveling, I could see what was going on. As Vidura said, it took 20 years for this book to come into being. I started writing in 2002, part 1, and it took me a year. I finished part 1 of the book, which is about Christianity and the how Christianity is a creation of the demonic elements, the Romans of that time, for the purpose of political control. So I finished that in 2003. And then it came time to write the remainder of the book about ISKCON, comparing, one to the other. And I understood that if I do that, I'm going to just be kicked out of the society. I'll be out there blowing in the wind all by myself. And at that time, I wasn't prepared to do that. So I put it on the shelf. So as I traveled around, it kept coming back to me because I'm within the society. I was hobnobbing with the gurus at festival time. I'd be with them, and I could see what was going on. And periodically, Super Soul was knocking on my head. Got to finish this book. So finally, I got back to it in 2016, 2017. So. The thing is, is ISKCON? What's it going to become? We see, of course, about the book changes. And remind me, I've got a card for you, all of you. There's some devotees in Denmark who are distributing the original books, and also you are. So the original books, you have your source for original books too.
I've got a load of them, yeah.
Okay, great. Anyway, so they're changing the books. How far will that go? Well, it was a fact that, as revealed in the Dead Sea Scrolls, that Jesus and his followers, they understood that their scripture had been falsified up to 1,000 years earlier, and Jesus's role as the Acharya was to reestablish the principles of religion, to cross out what was false and to put in proper truth. So the people at that time, his followers, they did not accept this bloodthirsty guy Jehovah as God. They thought that God was kind and loving, and so they could see there's problems in our scripture. So the question is, all this discussion now about book changes, and Garuda Prabhu is going to have a big seminar at Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley University, I think in February. And he's going to bring all the academics together to talk about why you can't change the books posthumously. Well, why should we even have to discuss that? It's not Jayadvaita's book to change. It's Prabhupada's book.
Okay.
But somehow or other, the GBC get behind it. And somehow or other, the GBC require that only the changed books be distributed. And one has to wonder, why? In fact, in Latchwood, Florida, where I stay, one devotee was trying to read in Srimad Bhagavad Gita class from Prabhupada's original Bhagavad Gita, and he was told by the temple president, you can't bring that book in here. Prabhupada's original book, no, we can't have that here. So, this is weird. Something is wrong with this. The question is, where is it going to go? Now, my premise is that the demons who control this world, that they are intent on using religion for their own purpose, and they've done that with Islam, with Christianity, and probably even Buddhism, who knows. They get inside them and then they turn everything around. Why? To keep people in this world. They're envious. There's Srila Bhaktivedanta. Have you read perhaps his article, Putana? Anybody? No? Okay, I've got that in the book. It's as you know, Bhaktivedanta's writing is a little challenging. You have to read it several times. So basically, he's saying, this is an approximate quote, that the best chance for evil to survive in this damned age is in the convenient disguise of religion. And he's saying that the Putanas, they gain control of the pulpits, and innocent people, they bring their small children to the Putanas, who simply mislead them from the path of the absolute truth. So Bhaktisiddhanta, he could see and understand what was going on, and he said it. And the thing is, what we have to do is we have to look through the eyes of Shastra, as we call it, Shastra Chakshusha, seeing through the eyes of Shastra. This means we don't stop at the body or at the, but we have to see what's beyond. For example, in the body we see the soul, the super soul. And so what's behind the behavior? Now, Prabhupada explained that when he was asked, who are the demons? In Rajavidya, maybe you've read this, Rajavidya, page 78, Prabhupada writes that the world is controlled by many Rakshasas. And so back in the 70s, and some devotees went to Prabhupada and they asked him when that book came out, they said, do you mean like Rothschilds and Rockefellers, those kind of people? And Prabhupada said, yes. And then they were like, okay, what do we do? Prabhupada said, preach to them. So, anyway, the point is, the world's controlled by these people. And their intention is to destroy religion. Bhaktisiddhanta also writes that King Kamsa is a typical empiricist who was ever on the lookout for the appearance of the absolute for the purpose of suppressing him before he has time to develop. And we can go back and look at our history and understand that that's certainly been the case in our society. So, the problem, one of the big problems, is that the GBC have taken Prabhupada's society as if it were their own. They've taken ISKCON. They had Rabindra Swarup write this small book. They call it a foundational document about Srila Prabhupada as the founder Acharya. Anybody read that? No? Okay. In that book, I couldn't read through the whole thing either. In that book, he's trying to, the ostensible purpose is that, yes, Prabhupada is our founder Acharya, we all have to follow him. But the actual purpose of that book is that the GBC body is the equivalent of Srila Prabhupada. That's what they're trying to make the case. We are Srila Prabhupada. So not only are they Srila Prabhupada, but they can take ISKCON. They've inherited ISKCON from Prabhupada, and they can do with it whatever they want. And this is what I'm challenging in the book. It's not theirs. Prabhupada in his direction of management. Anybody remember that? That came out in the mid-90s? Yeah. So direction of management was a document where Prabhupada created the GBC. He explained what they're supposed to do, and he also explained in his letters and morning walk conversations of the GBC what their purpose was, what they were supposed to do. And you can look at that history, what Prabhupada wanted, and see very clearly that they ain't doing it. Even from the early times, just after Prabhupada created the GBC, they began to act as if ISKCON were their own to control. And Prabhupada had to bring them back in line several times. Maybe one letter that you might have read is a famous letter to Karundar in 1972, where Prabhupada is complaining, no, you cannot centralize anything. And the purpose of our society is to create independently thoughtful men. So, but they're ignoring those instructions, and they're doing exactly whatever they want. So they're creating apasiddhanta, right, with their whole initiation system. They're trying to bring the guru under the control of the GBC. The guru has to be approved by the GBC. They have what they call a guru. What's it called? ISKCON guru, of course. And so I was curious about that. I took the course to see just what they were teaching. Because I was thinking anybody that's qualified to be a guru, why is he taking the course? So anyway, I took the course and I was very surprised, and perhaps I shouldn't have been, but there's one sloka from the Nectar of Instruction, Vachavegam Manasukrodavegam, right? The very first sloka. One who is able to control the mind tongue, belly, genitals is qualified to make disciples all over the world. I didn't say a word about that. Instead, they were teaching, how do you deal with your disciples and some nice things like that. How do you relate to the GBC? You're underneath the GBC. You're not independent of the GBC. GBC. So that's what the course was for. It was an indoctrination course to make sure the prospective gurus understood that they are under the GBC. So in this way, my conclusion is they're trying to create another Roman Church. The Catholic Church has gotten a really bad name. I'm sure in Ireland you know that. And so it's headed for history. What are they going to do next? Well, let's use ISKCON. Make another Roman Church out of that. So they're trying to put the GBC in the place of Pope. Or Pope or Cardinals, whatever. In any case, if you look at what they're doing, you have to question what their motive is. Prabhupada said you can't tell who is a demon, who is a deva, simply by looking at them. You can only understand this as a result of their actions. And so we can see the result of the actions. By now we have 50 years experience in GBC, and the result tells us that they're not sincere, dedicated devotees of His Divine Grace. So, what are we going to do? Now, of course, most of us, we've already made up our mind and we voted with our feet many decades ago. And but still, there's a lot of attachment for, sentiment for, and even practice of Krishna consciousness among those devotees who have left the society, brokenhearted, bewildered, angry, because what we joined has been subverted. It's not the society that we wanted, that we joined. Somehow or other it's changed. So what changed? It wasn't the artis, the deities, that's all there. The Srimad Bhagavatam's there. Okay, they changed the books. But it was the people, right? People that changed. And probably for all of us, the reason that we're leaving or left the society is because of the people who are acting in the name of Srila Prabhupada, but not acting as his bona fide representatives. So, we all know Prabhupada, he came, his purpose was not simply to set up temples around the world, but his very intention was to save the world, to change the very face of this world by teaching everyone how to, first of all, the principles of religion, and then how to follow these principles in terms of Varna and Ashram and Shastra. So there's been many attempts for this in the society which have not fared very well. You've got one not too far away here. All of the farms are practically farms in name only. Nothing is growing there. And what are they doing? They're doing yoga retreats simply to keep the place afloat. This is not the idea. The idea is to create a revolution in the impious lives of the world's misdirected civilization. And still, the potency of the opportunity is there to do that. So my conclusion at the end of the book is that we need to start the Hare Krishna movement again, and specifically for that purpose, to create a revolution in this world. And we understand that this can be done because, why? Krishna is God, and God actually can't do anything, right? So how is it going to happen? How are we going to get there from here? That's the mystery, because in one sense it seems almost hopeless. Okay. Where do we leave off? Start the Hare Krishna movement again. What's that mean? Krishna is God. So Krishna can do everything. And how's it going to happen? Well, Krishna actually can empower any one of us. What we have to do, our part, is to surrender to Him. And that means to hear the Lord in the heart, to purify ourselves to where we can hear the Lord in the heart, and to give up following all the ideas of what we think we're supposed to do as encouraged by the GBC or others, and follow the Lord in the heart. And this is what Srila Prabhupada did, right? He didn't challenge the Godhead Math. He just said, okay, they're off. We'll start over again. And so, the GBC's off. Okay, start over again. Prabhupada was a perfect example for us in so many respects. And this time it's not different. So we'll start the Hare Krishna movement again. Doing what? Doing exactly what Srila Prabhupada instructed us to do. It's not rocket science. It's very easy, right? Chant Hare Krishna, invite people for prasadam, instruct them about chanting the holy name. Have a kirtan. Anybody can do it. It's easy to do. And this is how our movement started in the beginning. This is why we all joined, right? We all joined because it was something very wonderful. Well, that hasn't changed. It's still wonderful. Krishna consciousness is wonderful. But we have to do it free from an institution. So what I advocate is a non-institutional organization. Right? Non-institutional means informal, like this gathering, okay? There's no president, you don't need a boss, Okay, we had prasadam, we didn't need a boss to make prasadam. You don't need a hierarchy, somebody telling you what to do. So a hierarchy is not required. Prabhupada, when he created the GBC, was not creating a hierarchy. He was simply wanted them to do what he was doing, to travel around, encourage the devotees, see that they're chanting their rounds, give classes, adjudicate any problems they might have, and so on. That's all. But they didn't do that. So, it's simple, non-institutional. And that's actually the saving grace. Why? Because institution means power is placed in a seat, president. And whoever sits in that seat, they're given the power. Qualified or not, doesn't make any difference. In Vedic culture, authority was given to a person of ability, depending on their ability. If they're a big king or small king, depends on their ability. Whether they're a big rishi or a small rishi, depends on their ability. There was no such thing as institutions in Vedic culture. We don't hear about that. There's nothing we read in the Bhagavatam about the institution of, but somewhere. Now some may say, well, Jagannath Puri, that's an institution. You may find some instances like that, or kings, okay, if there's a kingdom. But it's not again, it depends on the person at the top, okay? If you have a qualified king, Yudhisthira, he's qualified to rule the entire world. But when you don't have qualified people, what do? There's no necessity for any kind of boss. I mean, any of us, all of us, in fact, we've probably gotten together in small groups with each other and, discuss Bhagavatam or something, had a kirtan, had shared prasadam, like that. You don't need a hierarchy for that. So this is what we're advocating. Non-institutional organization to what? To encourage people to take up the chanting of Hare Krishna. That's all. Not necessarily to become devotees, just chant Hare Krishna. Everyone can see the world's gone mad, so how are we going to save the day? Well, Godhead is light, nescience is darkness. Where there's Godhead, there's no nescience. So, the world is full of darkness, so we need more Godhead. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Very simple. That's all we need to do. And allow ourselves to be used by Krishna as his instrument. We saw that. We saw that in the early days. Young, inexperienced boys and girls who would go out and do amazing things that we didn't even think we could do. And why? Because Prabhupada gave us freedom and he gave us responsibility. So we don't need somebody to tell us, go do something. We can do it. However Krishna is inspiring us, do it. Start a farm, paint pictures, sing songs, whatever. However Krishna's inspiring us, let's do that. But then let's do it in Sangha, in cooperation with each other to help support each other for the purpose of keeping this Krishna consciousness movement alive. So I'll stop there and we can discuss.
So when you were talking there, it made me think, well, I saw it before, it's become like a Duryodhana society.
Duryodhana Society. Explain that.
It's gone, Duryodhana, it was the army and the land and the...
Okay.
That was... so it seems like the leaders got intoxicated with the power, and Duryodhana mood was...
We have the power, we can do whatever we want.
It's the pivot where they use Prabhupada like a mascot.
Forget religious principles or even morality, we'll do what we want.
And they use Prabhupada and his truth to bash you over the head and make you comply. It's very like SS,
the
GBC. It's some people say that's a bit severe, but it's not. It's like the SS, very crafty.
Yeah. And the perhaps even the sad thing about that is they're not even aware of that.
They're being played. Yeah.
They think, they may not even think they're doing anything wrong. Okay, this is called Maya, right? When you become bewildered and you can't understand what to do, what not to do. They may think, yes, we're acting for the best interests of society. So, for example, when I travel around to speak, they tell everybody, don't go here. Stay away from Dineshwar. It's offensive. You're going to go to hell. And they think they're doing the right thing. Okay. God bless them. I don't have any problem with that. Okay. Self-realization is an individual journey, and we all have to do that for ourselves. Nobody can help us become self-realized. So if we're going to keep ourselves under the control of somebody else, good luck. Nobody can make us self-realize. It's not that you just jump on the good ship ISKCON and kick back for the ride back home, back to Godhead. It doesn't work like that. You have to do the work, and you have to think for yourself. So this is simply what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get everyone to wake up and think about what they're doing. Because, it's what we see is people just going through the motions. You were alluding to this, I think. Just going through the motions of, okay, we're in this habit, we go to the temple, we do this, we do that, and we do this without thinking. And so we're practically unconscious about what it is that we're doing. Well, that's probably better than doing other things, but, it's how far is that going to get you in developing your own understanding of reality? So, they're using, as I said, GBC are using ISKCON as if it were their own.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
And I think you're kind of preaching to the converted, because I completely agree with you. Not questioning that ISKCON and many other institutions have been infiltrated. But if the mantras are, which they are, powerful sound vibration, ultimately these people that are infiltrating are maybe just misguided, not necessarily bad. They're maybe thinking they're looking after everybody in the best possible way. But that mantra will ultimately impact on them. So we don't need to do anything. We don't need to judge them. And I don't think judging them as demons...
Who does them? Explain that to me. I'm an American.
Well, we don't need to name them as being demons. They're just at whatever stage they are in their spiritual evolution.
Okay.
We can't do anything to accelerate that for them. They're in this position. They're maybe gurus in ISKCON, but they are hearing the mantra, they're chanting. ultimately Krishna is driving their life forward as he's, driving all of us. So, yeah, I think what you're telling us we should do, we're all individually doing anyway, because that's been our intuitive understanding, or this has been what Krishna has told us that we needed to do, to step away from those people because they perhaps like to present themselves as the most elevated. But actually, the most simple people are the people that I connect better with and derive the most spiritual nourishment from.
The point I'm trying to make very strenuously is that they're not all innocent. No, some are, okay? I befriended some of the GBC, one who I won't name. I think he's a saint. He's a wonderful devotee, okay? But he's, he's an individual GBC. He's not the GBC body. But I'm very much convinced that demonic elements have entered the society all the way up to the GBC. And when I say demonic, I mean just exactly that, for the purpose of destroying the society. Why? Because if we look at the history of ISKCON, if our enemies had wanted to destroy it, they could not have done a better job than our own leaders. So, I'm sorry, after 40 years, you can excuse some individual problems or fall downs or mistakes, but not for 50 years. It's beyond possibility for me. I'm not saying you have to accept my point of view, but my perspective is that there are demonic elements who are trying to destroy ISKCON or change it and use it for their own purpose. We'll be in 300 years, well, we won't be in this body to find out, but in the first part of the book, I give the example of Christianity and what happened with that. The early Christians, not Christians, Jesus and his followers, they were Vaishnavas, and they were Vaishnavas like us. They wore tilak, they had a conception of a Chinta Beta Beta Tapa, they worship a masculine and feminine deity, their cleanliness habits were exactly the same as ours. They would not associate with non-devotees, they would not eat food cooked by a non-devotee. They were Vaishnavas. Okay, so then the question is, if they were Vaishnavas 2,000 years ago, what happened? Because Christianity doesn't look anything like Vaishnavism now. And so this is my point. In comparing them, what will Hare Krishna movement become 2,000 years from now? And I'm saying that because these demons have come inside, it's going to be spiritually impotent. It's going to be intentionally made spiritually impotent for the purpose of keeping people under control in this world.
You have the references right via read the Christianity. Is it in the book?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's full of references.
Okay.
And I would agree with what you're saying there. Although it took me a while, I also had that thing say, well, look, they just got victimized, some of the guys in the GBC, and they just, the money and the power and but after a while, I realized, it's a demoniac force. Like Sridhar Maharaj, he said things like, you must use your tasting machine, he called it, your own heart, and judge for yourself. Put it to your heart. What is this? Is this divine or is this demonic? And that simple little thing that's, you get the energy. So I met some of the big gurus, and it's a real dark, heavy, mafia, scary, thing. And I thought, I'm going crazy here or something. But after reading your book, verified, yes. Because that's a little gentle voice in our own heart. That's the super soul. And you need to verify it sometimes with other different things. That's my conclusion.
Would it not be utopian to think
Speak up, please.
Would it not be utopian to think that there's ever it's a material world in this Kali Yuga, so in any situation there's always going to be the modes of nature contending, there's always going to be the element of false ego. So, the point that I'm making that is it not utopian to have expected that the movement would be anything other than what it is now?
This is a problem as far as I'm concerned. And I've done this for almost 50 years. Okay, same thing. We want to cooperate. We want to think the best. We want to put aside our doubts and say, oh no, it can't be like that. I've done that also. But I came to the point where I couldn't deny what I'm understanding, right? From my own life experience, not just in Krishna consciousness, but understanding how this world works. So, unfortunately, I mean, many devotees do that. Okay, and I'm not trying to be the control. I'm not trying to say everybody has to agree with me, not by any shot. I'm simply making the case that it's okay to say that there's demonic elements in the society, flat out. Okay, I'm not gonna, not that it's a mistake, not that they're misguided, not that they're confused or enlightened. No, they're demons. And they're in there specifically for the purpose of destroying Prabhupada's mission. And that's what we've seen in 50 years. So that's my position. Hare Krishna.
I don't understand really, because I think ultimately we're all going back to Godhead. We all contain a spark of Krishna. There's good in everyone. Maybe, as I'm saying before, their spiritual evolution is maybe down there somewhere, but they are heading back to Godhead, however slowly. They're listening to the mantra. Maybe we should, and certainly I would distance what I've met gurus, as you're saying, Keshi, that I really thought, really, he's just not even polite. And yes, I know, and have the sense to say, well, I'm really not going to take instruction from somebody who can't be polite to me. And in our hearts, if Krishna is really driving our chariot, like attracts like, and we get drawn to other people who have the same feeling in their heart as we do.
Mm-hmm.
So these people, let them flutter about there doing whatever they're doing. And as you're saying, Krishna consciousness is shared is supposed to be personal. We're supposed to share it in intimate groups and with kind of platonic intimacy between friends.
Right. I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
I'm not against ISKCON. Okay, let me make that clear.
Mm-hmm.
God bless them. Let them go do whatever they're going to do. I don't want to put any energy trying to correct them.
Exactly.
I'm too old for that. I've only got a few years left, so I got to get on with it. So let them become whatever they're going to become. That's not my business. My business is to follow Prabhupada and to do what I can to help others understand the absolute truth of Krishna consciousness. So, I make this point very strongly because I want to, with conviction, understand why do we have to leave the GBC? Okay? Mm-hmm. There's a reason. Okay, now you can accept that or not, but 40 years of problems and mistakes and so on. It's too much for me. Okay. Now, will they go back to Godhead? Sometime sooner or later, whoever, whatever, fine. Okay, that's good. But that's not the point. The point is the early devotees, all of us, who came to Krishna consciousness early on and who experienced that nectar of devotion that we had, and we were so thrilled with it, it's not there anymore. Okay? And so how's that going to be transmitted? Okay, Krishna's God, he can do anything, everybody, Prabhupada said, all of you can go away, so many books have been distributed, this movement will go on. But he said also, okay. He said also that it depends on who's going to do the work and take the credit. So, we understand what Prabhupada wanted. We understand the potency of this society of pure Christian consciousness. We've all experienced that. So, Prabhupada was one single individual, 70 years old, back in 1965. Well, now we've got a lot of 70-year-old individuals. So we can multiply those efforts, if we become surrendered to Krishna like Prabhupada was.
It seems like, it sounds a bit funny, but it seems like I feel that in my life now, you're being forced to take a side. You make a stand. Are you with the Kauravas or are you with the Pandavas? And that sounds puffed up maybe, but you have to really clearly see. You're going to stand, like in my case, I'm a bit apathetic and a bit disappointed, and etc., etc. Because in a sense, well, I don't want to blame, but the ISKCON muck ruined my marriage as well. Because, I brought my so-called wife and I was very enthusiastic in the ISKCON and she was too. And after a while, she saw me and she felt it too, that there's something weird going on here. And then she sort of rejected me and said, "You brought me to some weird cult." And she didn't understand the full depth of the Krishna stuff as much as I did. So she just, okay, forget it. I'm out of here. And that impacted my kids too. And so, so it's the greatest violence committed against the human society to do in a situation like that, And when I was having trouble with my marriage, there's no support in any way. It's just like, oh, you're just in Maya, And then at one point I got a phone call from the authority, from Manu in fact, and says, look, why don't you give money anymore? And I says, well, I've done it for years. I just want to serve Krishna a different way. And he had a big argument with me. And I told him to go and F himself.
He argued with you.
Yeah, he said, because...
You're supposed to give money.
Well, that's my feeling, that's their interpretation of what Krishna is. To please Krishna, you do your thing, you give money. If you're not giving money, you're not a devotee. And that's disgraceful. It's disgusting. It's horrible. You have to be seen to be given the money. Seen, and your name has to be there. Oh, how much did you give? Etc. So that's horrendous. And that's demoniac. So I think and in my case now, I suppose I'm like Arjuna in a sense. You see lined up against all these people there that you thought were devotees, and you suddenly realize, but you have to take a stand. I have to get up from my bewilderment and start fight and look after myself and my spiritual life and try to encourage others. I do books a little bit sometimes, but I don't want to send people to the temple. I don't want to send my enemy to the temple because their idea of Krishna is despair, unattainable, and based on giving the more money you give, the more advanced you are. Or the more free service you give, the more...
Yeah, so when I say start the Hare Krishna movement again, it needs a leader, and I'm looking around at my godbrothers to see who I might go to try to draft into this role, and I'm not coming up with many names. So I'm going to have to fulfill that role. Not something that I set out to do. I thought I'd just write this book and just get on with writing the other things I want to write. But I realized I just can't, I've realized now I just can't write this book and it's going to take care of itself. Because what's happened in the interim is devotees from all over the world, or like yourselves, are contacting me because they see me as somebody that they can go to for some shelter because they don't get any shelter from the society. And so I realized, okay, I've put myself in this situation, and I'll have to do that. I try to be a good devotee. I've been free from association with opposite sex for 20 years. I'm 71 years old. I'm not interested in anything like that. So, okay, I'm somewhat capable. Okay, and I'm not saying by any means that. Start the Hare Krishna movement again. I'm Srila Prabhupada, forget that idea. But a leader is needed, and I'm going to have to do what is necessary. And I'm asking, actually, godbrothers to come and join me for that. And hopefully some will. We'll see.
Is a leader needed? That's my question.
What?
Really, is a leader needed? Because just in this discussion alone, you said we got the prasadam prepared without a plan. yes, we had some guidance and suggestions and expertise from each other and people who were qualified. However, we managed, and we all know that there's never going to be another leader like Prabhupada, which is your sentiments too, I'm sure. Does what you're suggesting as a solution really require a leader? Or can it just be people work together in good faith, or can it just be there are certain people who are qualified and we understand who's qualified in what area, we learn from them, but it's not one leader, because the minute we have one leader, your book is great and I'm all on for, like, I can't argue anything with you in general, and I wouldn't want to. However, the one point that I'm not completely sold on, if I'm to be completely honest, is the need for a leader.
Okay, when I say leader, when I say I'm going to take that role, it's not that everybody has to follow me. I'm saying follow Prabhupada, okay? And anybody can do that independently. They don't have to, it's not leader under me like that. Not at all, okay? But my experience in traveling and speaking with devotees and so on, I see that yes, leaders are needed. It's simply a fact. Now, for dweechas, no. They can be leaders themselves. But for the majority of people, yes. And it's like I say, it's something that I do reluctantly because I've experienced, even though I'm not a guru, I'm not a GBC, I'm not a sannyasi or anything, as I travel around because I'm wearing saffron. Let me tell you why I'm wearing saffron. Remind me to come back to this. So I was associating with all the gurus and everybody, and we'd go to festivals and so on. And so I read in Prabhupada's books, he said in Kali Yuga that sannyasa is forbidden, but Prabhupada wrote. But if you are following, why? Because most men cannot follow the principles. He said, but if you are following, you must take sannyas. So when I read that, and I also had a dream of Prabhupada at that same time that seeing myself in saffron. And so I thought, okay, I should take sannyas. So I applied for it, went through the process, and you have to go through a number of interviews. And halfway through, one of them, they came to me and said, Daneshwar, we heard that you believe that Prabhupada was poisoned. And I said, yes, I'm absolutely convinced about that. He said, okay. So I had to go to them and talk to them about it, why I was convinced about that. Then they came to me and said, okay, well, if you'll sign a paper that you do not believe Prabhupada was poisoned, you get a green light.
See, mafia?
Huh?
Mafia?
I thought, and what I told them, you keep your paper and I'll keep my honor, right? So I'm like a sannyasi, I don't have a stick. The only difference between me and a sannyasi is they have a stick and they have more money than I do. That's really the only thing, right? So, anyway, what was the point of that? I detoured from?
Leaders.
Oh yeah, even though I'm not sannyasi, I'm not guru, I'm not a GBC, anything like that, I'm not in any position in society, I would see how devotees, they would come and they would defer to me, and they look to me for support and help. Right? And so from this I can understand, even though I don't consider myself anybody significant, they do. And they need that support. And so it's helpful for them. And so I see that, okay, I take this role, not for me, but because they need it. And so I see that, yeah, leadership is needed, not for everybody. And I'm not saying that anybody has to follow me. What I'm saying is, we all follow Prabhupada. And if you can follow Prabhupada independently, do it. That's what's needed.
And you become the leader.
Yeah, and that way we become leader.
Was it the better servant? The biggest servant is the leader?
Yeah.
Genuine leader. Not well in ISKCON. The
Not
big leader.
an institutional leader. Not
Yeah,
an
the institutional leader
position.
is the opposite. He's a usurper or he's in it for the beer, as they say in Ireland. I'm here for the beer. He's oh yes, I'll be your leader. Where's the beer? Oh no, I don't want the beer. But he actually does want the beer. That's all he wants. That's an Irish kind of thing.
I think we're all very damaged by authority. Everybody is, because of what you're saying.
Yeah.
So it is difficult to actually perceive and let go to want to follow somebody.
I'm not asking anybody.
No,
to follow me.
I know you're not. But there are difficulties there. I know. Don't get me wrong. To either one become a leader is difficult because we're so damaged, and to have a leader is very difficult.
Yeah, this happened back in the 90s. I remember leader became synonymous with bad leader.
Yeah.
Right?
And
so nobody wanted to lead.
Uniform also is very damaging.
Yeah, nobody wanted to lead, nobody wanted to follow.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So the whole thing
Yes.
broke down 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah, but I guess, I suppose as a woman, well, within our household, for instance, there is a certain vying for supremacy. Let's say. I mean, it's
It's a dance.
It's a dance, exactly. But it's equal. We're equal, and we have our strong points and we have our weaknesses, and we work as a unit. We work as a, one. And I've always felt that there was something missing. Some part of ISKCON was undermined women and their role. And that perhaps, I know, I can only assume, when you say man, you're talking about mankind, men. You're not literally.
I'm not being sexist.
No, I don't think you are. But we need to pay more attention to our language to a certain. I'm not giving out to you.
It's something I'm not very conscious of because I'm not plugged into what's really going on in the world today. I don't understand that. Okay, if you say man, this is considered sexist. Forgive me for that. Back when I came of age and when I was growing up, I mean, man referred to women and men. I mean, that was the English language. So it's understood. In our early days, I'd like to go back to the early days of ISKCON, really, even perhaps before most of you joined. There was no, the women were equal to men. It was, it was like a war footing and everybody pulls their weight in a war. And, everybody did what they could. And the nice thing about it at that time was there was nothing established. And so everything was needed and everybody could contribute wherever they saw need. They could make a contribution and that was welcome. And that was what gave everybody a lot of energy. Why? Because I can contribute something, right? And this is what's needed, is to create a situation, not that we control people and tell them what to do, but to simply give them the freedom and the opportunity to contribute according to the way that they would like. Man or woman, whatever. Do what you can do. Fine. Yeah.
Well, do you think, considering the way religion has been, I don't mean Christian consciousness, I mean all religion has been undermined, and I'm not trying to blame anybody. This is not about blame, it's about explanation or, clarification. That maybe the way men have taken control of situations, religious situations, with a conscious view to exclude women, because that's definitely happened within the Catholic Church and many other religions. I'm sure Islam is pretty similar. That there is a problem with the way religion is controlled by men hugely. And that we really, really need to look at that now. And yes, that the role for women needs to be, we need to stand up and say, well, there is a role, there is a defined role
for women, and they're not just, they are equal. I know that from our relationship that Marcus has a very different way of studying to me. He certainly remembers things and words and names and God. I just found Krishna consciousness extremely confusing with all these different terms that I haven't studied enough to remember or learn. But I still understand the philosophy. I still understand where I want to be within the philosophy without necessarily, I'm not saying I shouldn't study, that's not what I mean. I think studying is important. And it's great to actually hear your view, because in a way I've kind of felt, there's something really wrong here. Something really wrong here, and not able to put my finger on it. And it's a kind of a relief. It's like, oh God, yeah, no, I wasn't wrong. But I would love to see worldwide, I suppose, kind of universally a place for women, because I know we all give lip service to feminism and blah, 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 a lot of that, but it's not, it's just lip service. A lot of the time it's just, I mean, in all of the managerial roles, it's all men, it's like, God.
It's a way of co-opting people. The Vaishnavas, the women's Vaishnava ministry is a way of co-opting the women. To placate them, pat them on the head. Okay, you've got a place now.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually deal with the problem, because what was the problem? No. The problem was not the women, the problem was the men.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they didn't deal with the problem. Yeah. And the women were complaining about the problem, and the men said, okay, we'll give you so.
Yeah.
Okay, let me address what you're saying. Institutional religion is finished.
Great.
Okay? All of it. Christianity, all of it.
Yeah.
Because we're beyond that. We're ready for the next step. What's that next step? How do we grow spiritually as an individual? That's what religion is all about. Christianity and the major religion of this world, established actually by the demons for the purpose of what? Control. And not for the purpose of self-realization, spiritual advancement. No. You come to church, you give money, you make us rich, we control you. That's how it's been. Okay? That's finished. We don't need that. Okay? What do we need? We need to understand, how do I grow as an individual? How do I grow to understand my own spiritual nature and come closer to God? Okay? Now, what do I need to do that? I need a teacher. Okay? Now, in the Vaishnava tradition, that's called guru. Some devotees have told me, I want you to be my Shiksha Guru. I said, forget this word guru. I'll be your teacher. I'll be your coach. Okay? I don't want to hear the word guru. I can teach you what I've known to the extent of my understanding, realization. I can't go beyond that. And I'm not going to pretend anything, so that you think I'm something I'm not. I don't want to play that game. So, and anybody can do that. Anybody can be the guru, teacher, according to the level of their realization and understanding. Women, men, everybody. So that's what I'm advocating. And so you be guru also. No roles. This idea of what's the role for women? Role means institution. Give me a position. Forget the institution. We don't need the institution. Let's just pursue our own spiritual development and help others pursue theirs. Is that okay?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yes, it is. Yeah. And I suppose in a way that, like I said it last night, this war, this battle between good and evil has been going on for millennia and will continue on. And
right.
Yes, you're right. It serves to only divide, or it's just divisive between men and women. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely, I see that. And then I think we all need to take up arms. I think this forgiveness business is not working. It doesn't work. Being forgiving doesn't work, and sometimes we need to actually. The war, the battle is not. It's very real. It's not metaphorical. It's bloody real.
We're living the current chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, could I say something? Yeah, that's a really good point. That's what I've experienced now. It is real. There is dark forces. Now, I used to think, intellectually. Now I've experienced there is dark forces. I won't get into details in my own thing, but there's demon forces. Once they start to get in your own consciousness, they wear you down, and they get power and pleasure by making you miserable and guilty and fearful. That's how it works.
That's the overarching theme of my book. There is divine and demonic. The demons are real. We live in a demonic society. However benign it may appear to us, it's demonic. And it's designed to exploit people for the benefit of a few. And we're not the few. We're the exploited.
And we're a part of as the mantra says, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. We're a part of the Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. We're a part of that mantra because we are aspiring Gaura Bhakta Vrindas. Like in this painting, beautiful painting you have here from Srimati Radharani, of Srimati Radharani, and painted by Jadharani, whom we all know very well. And what is this? This is a depiction of Radharani criticizing the bumblebee. And what does she say as a part of that criticism? She said, because she's thinking that bumblebee is coming as a spy to spy on her and bring information back to Krishna. And she said to the bumblebee, "You are the unreliable servant of an unreliable master." So it's all a reciprocation, and it's the level and the degree to which we want to reciprocate. We can enter that Leela of Krishna at any level we want to. Any level, nothing will stop us. Absolutely nothing. Prabhupada has given us absolutely everything. But if we see ourselves as separate from it or relying on somebody else to help us to develop that consciousness, then we'll always be lost in the wind, like a leaf.
We can just think, I just have to be in the institution and follow the institution. It's not enough. This is what they want people, the devotees, to think. It's not sufficient. So, it's a very good point to make. But, there's nothing stopping us, but our perceived role in an institution, which is limiting.
I'd feel bad to leave it on the note that men are the problem person because the problem is outlined in your book. The problem is demonic nature. There's many females in this country at the moment that have been convinced that abortion is a great option and something to be fought for. And they're ladies, supposedly. So, there is, forgive me for going here, taking the non-feminist route, but in my understanding, there's only scenarios where men and women have gone into positions that they're not able for and struggled and failed equally. Men are not a problem. Unsupported men are the problem. Men who take on much more than they can do is a problem. Women who want a position they aren't able for is a problem. Women who think blaming men on a problem that's caused by other circumstances is a problem. It's a very real problem in today's society because we're meant to be a team. And I might have a woman's body right now and I might have been a man 41 years ago. So I had the same nature 41 years ago as I have now. So it's not the fact that I'm a lady now and a man 41 years ago that makes me a problem. It's my conditioning and my nature that makes me a problem.
Very good.
I just want to say that because we're all failing and succeeding collectively in different areas. But men have no support, and fighting men is not supporting them, or blaming men is not supporting them. When we spend enough time to heal our dysfunctions with men and women, which is an individual journey that we all have to take 5, 10, 20 years in our lives to make happen. It's not easy. But if you take that journey, you're not going to be traumatized by men. Like me personally, at my young age, I have every reason to hate men. I could tell you 20 years of horror stories to the point where I was killed and came back to life. I could go there, but I'm not going to, because I've healed all my trauma. So I'm coming from a point where it doesn't matter what happened to me, because I'm out the other side of it now. I recognise it goes on, but I recognise that blaming each other on it instead of helping each other to heal from it is not the answer. What we need now is healing and camaraderie and learning and teaching with and from each other. You know, we've made a lot of mistakes. Other people are still making mistakes. Thank God we've had some sort of insight into seeing what mistakes are and hopefully stepping out of them. But let's recognise that's what we're doing. We're healing here. We're opening a path for healing men and women.
Fine. Thank you. Very good. Yeah, they're right. The problem I often say is not men, it's not women. The women want to blame the men. The problem is not men, it's the men in Tamagun. And putting a woman in charge who's in Tamagun is not the solution either. The problem is Tamagun. Right? We all have to come get some more sattva.
Yeah, Prabhupada, you know, what I really took from Prabhupada was that we have an original relationship with Krishna. Krishna is a person, and the way to understand that person is through love, through service, which is manifest as service. And that we had an original relationship with Krishna, which we left. So ultimately, the ultimate problem for all of us is our own, that we left Krishna. And that, you know, so we're here in the material world, and that's a whole learning experience for us to experience life without Krishna and all that that involves and all the problems that ensues from that, and particularly in our relationship with one another. And now we're in the process of going back to Godhead. You know, this lifetime, next lifetime, 20 lifetimes, we're at least on the process of going back to Godhead. And for me, I can just say that all these devotees here I've known for such a long time, well, even yourself, Tom, that's a few years now, but all these devotees from Belfast, and it's just wonderful that we're still here, you know, trying to, in our relationship with Krishna one way or another. And I think that's the important point for all of us, is that relationship with Krishna. Why else would we be here? And, you know, whatever, you know, is it a soul group? People talk like that, I don't know, but whatever, you know, we're all, for me, it's just a wonderful thing that despite all the problems that have been there, that we're still advancing, we're still here, and we're still connected with Krishna and with each other. And that's the optimistic thing. I mean, everything else really at the end of the day just vaporizes like a dream. Do you know what I mean? When death comes, what are all of these issues? They're going to be so insignificant. And the significant thing is like all the times we've been able to chant together, to associate with each other, to serve the deities, or you know, and that's to me like always a reason to be optimistic and not unnecessarily deflated or mental about the situations that we encounter in the material world, because they really are ephemeral. You know, like the reality, this is an eternal moment because we're connected with Krishna. Anything's not connected with Krishna, it's just completely ephemeral. So, you know, whether negatively or positively, like Prabhupada used to make that point, even if they speak negatively about Krishna, it's still positive because they're hearing Krishna's name. So even if our experiences, you know, within the movement And I'm sure somebody could be sitting in another group saying, oh, my Ishvara, he was such a demon when he was part of the Demoniac culture of this con and giving such a hard time. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it's all perspective, do you know what I mean? Like, someone else is a demon for me and I'm a demon for them, so, you know, it's all relativity. But the good point is that somehow we're connected with Krishna, and that's, you know, that's the sweet thing. That's
The solution is, for all of us, individually and collectively, is to follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions. He's our ever well-wisher. He's given us his perfect example in every respect, and we can try to follow in his footsteps, follow his instructions. Not to step into his shoes, we can't do that, but to follow in the footsteps of Prabhupada and the other acharyas in giving Krishna to others. So that's our business, and I'm simply advocating we get on with it in a way that can be done and bring more people to Krishna consciousness, and so that they can be happy and not become frustrated after a few years. So, yeah.
Well, in an all-institutionalized society for Krishna consciousness, where does the future lie for disciples and gurus and initiations? Because obviously there's nobody qualified to save us. Most people would naturally go down the Ritvik route.
Would what?
The Ritvik route.
Yeah.
So in an all-institutionalized society, where does one take shelter off, or what personality does one take shelter off, and what is the future for initiations and gurus, etc.?
This is a very good point, because we've seen historically that people become frustrated with the leadership of ISKCON, and where do? They go to the Gaudiya Math, or they become a Ritvik, they've gone to Narayan Maharaj, or they just give up entirely. Okay, what I'm saying is, why don't we just leave the GBC and still follow Prabhupada? Okay, as to who's going to save us, we have to save ourselves, right? Prabhupada said, we fly your own airplane. So how does a guru save us? He gives us instructions to follow, and if we follow them, we can achieve the goal. If we don't follow them, the guru doesn't save us, right? So it's not that somebody's going to, it's not this Christian thing that, Jesus is going to save me if I believe. We have to do the work. So we're going to save ourselves, but by the grace of Guru. Why? Because he's telling us what to do. You do like this. You don't do that. And in this way, we achieve perfection. So, so I'm saying, just continue to follow Prabhupada. We don't have to give up Prabhupada because we give up the GBC. We stay to Prabhupada, stay fixed to Prabhupada, Prabhupada's lotus feet, and Prabhupada is always giving the mercy. I'll tell you about a letter that I got from Prabhupada. When I was just a new bhakta, I asked Temple President a question, that we're instructed to offer our food by putting the food in front of a picture of Prabhupada and saying the prayers. So I said, well, how is it that the Guru can be present in all those pictures, because the Guru is a Jiva soul and the Jiva is localized? I could understand if we put the food in front of a picture of Krishna, because he can be everywhere. So my temple president said, oh, this is a nice question. Why don't you write to Prabhupada and ask him? So I was real happy to be authorized. We didn't just write to Prabhupada. And so I sent that question to him, and his reply was the following. Now, I want to point out that this is a general question, so the answer is also general. It's not just for me, it applies to everyone. And the answer was, the spiritual master is present wherever the disciple is sincerely trying to follow his instructions. This is possible by the mercy of Krishna. In all of your devotional sentiments and in all of your attempts to serve me, I am with you just as my Guru Maharaj is with me. Remember this always. That's a letter to Bhaktivedanta, December 1, 1973. It's on the database. So, wherever we're trying to follow his instructions, the Guru is present. He's there. And so I advocate to everyone that we're all disciples of Prabhupada. We're all followers of Prabhupada, and we can all take shelter of him. one time I was in one temple in the Baltics, and for Prabhupada's appearance day, and I saw one young devotee in the morning taking prasadam. I said, "What are you doing? Today's Prabhupada's appearance day. It's half-day fast." He said, "Oh, Prabhupada's not my guru." I said, "What do you mean? You don't read Prabhupada's books?" He said, "Yes, of course I read Prabhupada's books." Then how can you say Prabhupada's not your guru? Of course he's your guru. Prabhupada's a guru for all of us. And so we all can take shelter of Prabhupada directly. We don't need some intermediary. Like I was explaining, when Prabhupada said, "Woo," the May 28th conversation, if you know that, they were asking Prabhupada, "So how will initiations go on after you're no longer with us?" And anyway, it came to the point Prabhupada said, he becomes regular guru. So regular guru, what's that mean? It means teacher. That's all. Teacher. So all of us can be regular guru, right? Teaching others according to what we've understood, and then helping them to the degree that we can. So, like this. Okay, is that okay? Okay. Follow up?
Yes, but one needs to have a connection with a self-realized soul, not in a state of vapu, in order to have that connection to the parampara. So I'm a little lost. It doesn't.
You have a connection. You're saying you don't have a connection with Prabhupada?
I'm not saying I don't have a connection, but I have actually read that one needs to have a connection with a pure devotee, as far as possible, in order to have a connection.
But you have
not
Prabhupada.
necessarily in vapu,
Why not? Prabhupada said, yeah, exactly, not necessarily Vapu. Prabhupada said Vani is more important than Vapu.
Yes.
So you have a connection with Prabhupada, the pure devotee.
I've never met Prabhupada.
Well, you meet him in his books.
But
Devotees ask me, when did you first meet Prabhupada? I said, when I read his book.
I've never met Bhaktivedanta Swami.
Yeah.
But, I just can't piece together how I have that connection unless there's a living Sadguru who's planting the seed into my heart. It's okay to have theoretical knowledge, it's okay to read books, it's okay to chant, but surely one needs to have a connection with a pure devotee, if only for a momentary period of time, in order to receive the seed of bhakti. So,
I'm saying that you have. I'll give you another example. One devotee is a book distributor. He asked Prabhupada one time, "So many books have been distributed, Prabhupada. How are all these devotees going to get initiated?" He told me this personally. And Prabhupada replied to him, "By reading my books, they are initiated." Okay? So, that connection is there. If you research Diksha in Prabhupada's writing, I've done this. There's 3 places where he defines Diksha. And in every 3 instances, he says Diksha is the process of transference of transcendental knowledge. And by that definition, we're all Diksha disciples of Prabhupada. Now, this is unique in the history of the world. Why? Because if we go back 300 years, there was no books, there was no recordings, there was no CDs, there was no internet, there's none of that stuff. And if you wanted to get a guru, what do? You have to go find somebody, and you have to find the best person that you can, obviously, right? Well, now, 21st century, Prabhupada comes when? Just at the advent of magnetic recording. This is not by mistake. So that everybody can hear Prabhupada. Everybody can read Prabhupada's books, right? We have mass book distribution now. That was never the case before. So that everyone in the world, I maintain, that anyone in the world who's getting some understanding of actual spiritual life is getting it through Srila Prabhupada. When I became a devotee in 1972, I started reading Prabhupada's books. He was clearly saying, you are not the body. And at that time, nobody else was saying that. Nobody. And I looked through several different groups and so on in my search. Nobody was saying, clearly, you're not the body. Fast forward the year 2000, I read 60% of people in America understood that they were something different than the body. Now, they didn't have any clear conception, perhaps, of I'm a spirit soul or whatever that means. But that's a huge achievement. And in what, 30 years, people understood that they're not the body. And where'd that come from? It only came from Srila Prabhupada. Nobody else was saying that. Prabhupada and his disciples and grand disciples who were distributing his books to give people transcendental knowledge. So I maintain everyone in the world is disciple of Prabhupada.
So,
When they said, when Prabhupada, they asked Prabhupada, how many disciples do you have? He said, I have unlimited disciples. And I accepted it like that.
so basically, Srila Prabhupada's the last acharya in the parampara.
That remains to be seen. Okay, other acharyas certainly may come. That's up to Krishna. But for us, he's certainly the acharya. He's our acharya.
Yes, but whenever acharyas do come, because of the brainwashing from the institution, we are not trained to see these people properly or respect them. Or
Okay, why use the word acharya?
Why?
Why is this word acharya important?
Well, okay, well, it doesn't really have any importance, but an acharya is obviously a natural leader, somebody who's endowed with.
Okay, leaders are there. Okay,
somebody who has actually seen Krishna.
leaders are there.
Yeah.
After,
Not necessarily a leader. Not necessarily.
Okay.
no.
all right,
You're talking about
the point I want to make is that after the initial 11 gurus, they took the role, they called themselves acharyas. And I don't know how much this has influenced you, because you're using this word acharya. And I don't mean you, I mean collective use. That's not my experience, so I can't understand that. Prabhupada's the acharya for everybody. We don't need another acharya because he's certainly he's Jagat Guru. He's certainly the qualified person that all of us can learn from and receive transcendental knowledge from. So in that sense, all of us are disciples, and you could even say Diksha, disciples of Srila Prabhupada. So I think you already have what you need. You don't have to go somewhere else. You don't have to find some other living acharya, whatever. Prabhupada is there. He's there for all of us.
Yes, but spiritual life is very multi-dimensional, multi-varied, multi-personality based also.
Yeah.
So, to kind of say that another pure devotee is not walking on the...
I don't say that.
You
No,
know?
I'm not saying that at all.
Mhm.
Okay. And there may be others that we can get shiksha from or inspiration from, and we may even refer to them as acharya. That's okay. Okay. But I'm saying it's not necessary. It's not that we're devoid of the vani of an acharya. We have Prabhupada. And if you come across the path of other pure devotees, count your blessings. Good for you.
So would it not be considered heresy? Because most institutions, whenever one does go across to another Vaishnava institutions within the Four Sampradayas, it's usually considered heresy. Is that an
Heresy or hearsay?
Heresy.
Heresy, yeah.
Is this another form of institutional brainwashing? I mean, going back to Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago, I mean, obviously the Christians have, and even with the Prophet Muhammad in the 12th century, these Abrahamic religions are basically saying this is the last acharya, there can't be anybody else, and then Muhammad came, and also Prabhupada.
Well, forget them.
Nobody else can come.
We have our own Vaishnava
It sort
tradition.
of goes into the same kind of...
Well, we have examples from Chaitanya Charitamrita, for example. Who is it? Who is his name? He's very attached to Ramachandra as his guru. Is that Tulsidan? No. One devotee was saying, he was being encouraged to take shelter of Krishna, but he said, but I give my heart to Ram. And so Lord Chaitanya, he said, okay, you're properly situated, no problem. So, this is a sectarian idea that, this person or that person is okay. Whoever inspires us in progressing in our spiritual life, that person should be taken as guru. You know, and how do you understand that? From the heart, not from the head, not from sampradaya, this position, that. No, from the heart. This person, when they speak, they touch my heart, and it's wonderful for me. I love to hear from them. Okay, we can say this is guru, we can say it's teacher, we can say acharya. You can apply whatever label. The label's not important. Okay, the importance is what is the impact of the relationship. Okay, and we can get that from Srila Prabhupada's books as well, from his Vani, from his lectures, from seeing the videos, and from others. It's not limited.
No, certainly not.
Sri Radhikama Davayora Para, Madhurya Lila, Guna Rupa Namna. This is something we sing every day when we're going to Mangalarti. And who fulfills that role that we can invest that degree of faith in the person who fulfills the role of Sri Radhikama Davayora Para, who's engaging in Madhurya Lila? And how many personalities are we aware of who can fit that role? And if we find a person who fulfills that role, who we can see manifests that qualification to invest your faith in such a person, regardless of whatever mat or institution they're coming from, if they fulfill the roles of just the song, the Samsara Davanana Lila Loka, Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. If that person fulfills that role, that person is.
So basically it's an individual reciprocation, not a collective one.
Tad vidi pranipratena pariprasnena sevaya upadekshanti tekena gyaninas tattvadarshinaha. Just try to learn the truth and approach a spiritual master. He can reveal the knowledge to you. Why? Because he has seen the truth. Tattva darshan. So that person, that's a big investment of your faith in such a person, because that person's qualities and qualifications manifested in your heart, and you say, yes, this person has the quality. I'm free to take.
Well, a junior devotee can't understand that Madhurya Lila. It's impossible for them to see in another person what they are experiencing. Of course, many project that, which is not really a proper thing to do. Again, the criteria that I suggest is you just simply judge by your heart. Who's touching your heart? Who's inspiring you? And then, when you have that experience, you follow that. That's all. Then Krishna, by the mercy of Krishna, one gets guru. So Krishna is sending those persons who are going to inspire and help us along our path back to him.
The thing that I find off-putting about
Off-putting
about many people who assume the role of guru is that, it's just so obvious that the false ego is there, where the whole thing becomes contractual, where they that person is wanting. It's definitely doesn't come across as a loving exchange. Where if a person has love for Krishna, what they want to do is just share that love with other people, and there's nothing contractual about it at all. It's just like a mother's love for their children. It's just a natural love for other living entities in relation with Krishna. So the whole thing is taken on
an institutional flavor.
It's taken on it's almost like I can't even find the word for it, but a look. There's a look. There's a position. A look to the whole thing. I don't see a guru like that at all. It's like if you look at the relationship of Lord Chaitanya and his followers and the 6 Goswamis, it was just that Sanatan was, he was respected. He just maybe perhaps had the one with the most, I don't know, for whatever reason, he was just respected as the, the leading Vaishnava, let's say, but not as a sense of like an institutional leader where he's doing, it's a whole like Tesco's or something, like an organization. It's just a group of devotees who love each other and who share and perhaps if there was a question on Tattva, he would settle the question because he was the most learned or whatever, or something like that. But all I'm saying is that I personally find the whole idea of this institutional idea where we have this idea that, the big person on the throne and, it can be a lot more simpler than that, where it's just an ordinary devotee who just has love for Krishna and he's sharing that with others.
The curious thing about this is that you can see that because of your adhikar, okay? That means your progress, your understanding of Krishna consciousness, your purity of consciousness. The followers of that person cannot, okay? So we all see according to our adhikar, according to our own progression and level of realization. As we progress, we will see things differently. The world changes as our own realization and understanding of purity changes. So, there's many followers of some ISKCON gurus. God bless them. They can't see what you're seeing. But, what's that mean? That they shouldn't follow? No, not necessarily. Let them do that. In time, they may progress. Maybe they won't. But because you have a greater adhikar, you can see what they don't. So it's not right for you. It can be right for them.
Yeah.
As long as the intention of the guru is to improve the student.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Even if it's not, from the perspective of the student, that's okay. Okay. The guru, his motivation may be wrong. Maybe he's trying to enjoy his role as guru, which is not very good.
Yeah.
But for the student who's following, they're just saying, here's my spiritual teacher. Let me, listen to them, learn from them. No problem for the student. So it's different for everybody. According to our own position, our relationship, we have different responsibility or we're getting something different from the relationship or have an obligation to give something to the relationship. So it depends on each individual and their progress in devotional service. Go ahead.
Could I just make a suggestion that we maybe move on and have some prasadam and a bit more kirtan because I'm sure people have to get home.
Okay.
But not.
I see the sun's done now.
I don't want to seem.
Okay. No, it's like, thank you. Anyway, I want to thank all of you for kindly coming to hear this presentation, for giving me your association. It's nice to have the opportunity to speak and share my realizations with you. I hope you find them edifying. If you take the book, please read from page 1. Don't jump ahead to the ISKCON part. Okay, the beginning is important. And if you do read the book, then please let me know your comments. And if you have any questions or even criticisms, I'm happy to hear them. So again, thank you very much for your association. Srila Prabhupada Ki.
And can I thank Daneshwar for writing the book and coming here and presenting this and for bursting that bubble that needed to be burst. It's shot an arrow actually for an awful lot of people. Like I was struck by Keishi's comment because it very much resonated with our experience in our family as well. That there is devastation actually that the Shadow ISKCON has created. And it's a really, really important service that you've done that will last for forever. So thank you, Prabhuji, for doing that. We really appreciate it.
I can't say it's my work. I take this book as an assignment from Krishna. He wouldn't let me forget about it even though I tried. So anyway, I'm happy that you find it edifying and valuable.
Absolutely, because one of the things I just wanted to say as well is that, you know, some of the so-called gurus that I've seen, I can't even look at their faces, and even to hear their voices, I have to turn it off immediately. It's so toxic to me. On the other hand, also when you hear someone speaking the truth, it hits you like a thunderbolt. You know, it's really powerful. So both are there, and if we listen to that, we already know automatically. So thank you very much.
Please have my humble obeisances.
Happy to now,